Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time Out. I'm your host, Ari Bruckman, and joining us this week is a very special guest. He is currently a sports marketing representative who focuses on athlete branding, and recently, this past year, he launched his own company called Garden Wealth Entertainment, where he focuses on professional athletes, social media influencers, as well as musicians. He's had the chance to work with three-time NBA Slam Dunk champion Nate Robinson, two-time NBA All-Star Carlos Boozer, current Las Vegas Raider wide receiver Tyrell Williams, and current cornerback for the Carolina Panthers, Eli Apple. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Napoleon Polo Kerber. Polo, how we doing, man?
Good, Ari. How are you? Thanks for the intro, man. Seems like you definitely did some research.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. No, listen, a pleasure to sit down with you and really just kind of hear how you got into what you're doing now. So I want to start a little bit way back when. I want to start with you as a kid. Was there anybody you looked up to or you tried to emulate kind of growing up that really inspired you to work in sports?
Yes and no. I would say that my uncle is really the person that inspired me just to even want to be able to push and even have a dream, I guess you could say, of just a bigger picture and not wanting just a normal 9 to 5, everyday kind of job. That really came from my uncle. I would say it wasn't in sports necessarily. Honestly, until I got into the position that I'm in now, I didn't even know that was a thing, that I could do. I played sports my whole life. Played football, through high school. I played soccer when I was younger. Played basketball. So it was always an interest, but never anything that I looked at and said, hey, you can make a career out of being able to work with, some of the best athletes in the world. I never thought that it was even an option, to be honest with you.
Well, look, man, you've definitely taken that reins and really gotten yourself going and jumpstarting yourself in the industry. But talk a little bit about, you were working at a sneaker store, I believe, and it was an encounter with an athlete that many recognize as one of the most dominant running backs to play, LaShawn McCoy. But for a lot of people starting out in the industry, it would most likely be a player who's maybe taking a chance, maybe wouldn't necessarily make it in the pros. Talk about what that relationship was like and kind of how that started.
For sure. So I guess I didn't take the conventional route by any means. When you look at going to school or college, for sports marketing, it's not like you graduate and they say, okay, here's your diploma and here's your first 3 clients. You have the knowledge of what you want to do, but you're still on your own as far as building it up. So I think I was the opposite, where I had the clients, but I had no knowledge. So it was kind of reversed of I guess, what the traditional route would be. I was working at a sneaker store, and I had a good relationship with a few athletes. Like, there were smaller guys that would just come in. They would buy shoes all the time. I was an athlete myself growing up, so I knew how to kind of talk to them, or, just be a normal guy, not necessarily be, I guess, the same interaction that they would have all the time with fans. So I think that they just found some comfort with myself. Just with Shady, I think it really kind of came about when he got traded to the Buffalo Bills, and he wanted to do more things in the community, wanted to put together some charity events, wanted to put together a couple autograph signings, and he's from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, went to Pitt for college, played on Philly his whole career. So you get to this point when you go to Buffalo, you don't know anybody.
Right.
Everybody that is your team that's around you, that's close to you, all they know is Philadelphia. So I think that's really where I was kind of able to get my shot. I'm from Buffalo, New York, so I know the area very well. And he asked me if I could help him put together an autograph signing. And that's really the first thing that kind of, catapulted me into the career that I'm in now. The autograph signing ended up going very well. Then we did another one. And then it turned into a couple other events, things that were more complex. And then he just introduced me to different teammates that he had. At that time, the Bills were kind of going through a shift where they were, starting to get McDermott, Brandon Bean, being
Mm-hmm.
the position that they're in now. So a lot of the players that they had on the team when LaShawn first got there were kind of on their way out. And that actually helped me out a lot too, because I had relationships with a lot of the other guys that were leaving, like Robert Woods. So now he goes to, the Rams. And
Okay.
that was really, it was honestly just crazy timing, you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
it was meeting him in a good situation, doing some good with him, and then kind of having relationships with a lot of players that were going around the league, and that really just turned into starting to do a little bit more on the event side, different charity events and things of that nature, and still trying to like find my place and figure out what I wanted to do, and until it escalated to the point that it's at now.
So talk a little bit more about that. I heard you mention finding your place. So, what kind of person in the industry did you see yourself as? Because I think it's a really unique perspective you kind of mentioned before. I think a lot of people mistake athletes because we put them on pedestals and, they have a voice, they have a platform. I think they mistake sometimes they are human people, right? And so the interactions that they have with people are important to them just as, they are to themselves. So what did you try, or who did you try to embody that kind of made you where you are now?
Well, I would say that the first thing that I try to do is just to try to get to know every player that I work with. And I think that, when you look at some of the bigger, whether it's agencies or marketing companies, a lot of those guys like a CAA or like, Wasserman Group, they have, huge amounts of talent. So it's kind of hard to be able to get to know all of that talent on an individual level. And I think that's kind of what set me apart, where a lot of the guys that started to come to me or work with me, they just felt more of like a home type of environment where I'm going to put the same amount of effort into the guy who's at the top of my roster as I'm going to the guy that's all the way at the bottom. And I think, just being able to kind of like show guys that is really, I guess, what set me apart. I always looked to, like what Maverick Carter and Rich Paul do with LeBron. I mean, I think that for me, just to kind of see where they've come from, I would say it's very similar to me, because it's just they knew LeBron James, and they had the player, they had the talent, but they didn't have the education, but they had the opportunity, and they kind of learned it on the fly. And for myself, that's really exactly what it was, where I had opportunities, and I learned on the fly. I learned as I kind of went along. So not to say that I feel like I'm on their level or even in their stratosphere by any means.
Sure.
Those to me are, I would say, like the ultimate, I guess, role model-esque, type guys. But that is who I try to emulate and look to have a company that could end up being like a Clutch Sports or like an Uninterrupted.
What age did you realize, hey man, this is where I want to work, or the industry I want to work in, but I'm capable of doing big things?
It just happened, really. To be honest with you, I think I was going back and forth. Where it was still at the point where it was like, okay, cool. I like doing what I'm doing with the sneaker store, but I'm starting to be able to do cool things or go to cool events, or I'm making money just from having some people come meet this guy and he's signing some autographs. So
Sure.
it was really like a back and forth type of thing. My whole life, I didn't necessarily know. I knew I didn't want to work in like a mall for my whole life, or just retail, but I didn't know what steps to take to catapult myself there. I would even say, up to the point of just this past year, where I was working for another marketing company and then developing my own marketing company, I would say that's almost the point where, now it was like, okay, cool. Like, this is something that I can see myself doing, for the rest of my life. And it's something that can be sustainable and something, that I enjoy doing.
Sure.
I've always had fun doing it, but it definitely took me a while to, figure out how I was going to get there and, meet the right people to kind of put me in position, develop the partnerships with the brands and, with the corporate partners and media companies and you know, things like that. It took a while to do that. You know, so I think once I got to that point where I felt like it was at a good enough position. So I'm, you know, 29 now, so maybe, I don't know, 28, 20,
Okay.
27 and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but that's super cool. So did you started? I heard you mention before the marketing group you worked with before was Clear Vision.
Yeah,
Is
Clear
that what
Vision Marketing Group, and that, so Clear Vision actually, they were an event-based marketing company.
Okay.
So they would do like the celebrity softball games.
Oh wow.
They would do, you know, the school visits, the hospital visits, you know, writing children's books, things like that. And Clear Vision helped LaShawn McCoy. Clear Vision, there was actually a company that was based out of Philadelphia.
Okay.
So Clear Vision was really, that all came from LaShawn McCoy, and it was just really, you know, kind of giving me different tools and steps and things like that on what I wanted to do. And that's why for so long I focused myself on doing event-based marketing, where it was like, okay, cool, let's plan this event, let's do this, let's do that, because that's really like what I was learning. And then once I got to the point to realize, you know, like, why don't you do endorsement deals? Like, if a guy wants a Nike contract, why can't he come to you for that? You know, or
sure.
What if he wants to, you know, get a Pizza Hut commercial, or, you know, anything like that? Why can't I be the person that does it? If somebody wants to go on First Take or on your show, why can't I be the one, you know, that sets it up? So for me, I think that it was that point where I was like, okay, well, I know event-based marketing is it's fun. I like doing it. I like the events. I like being able to, you know, see kids' faces when they get to meet their heroes, and, you know, give back to charities and stuff like that. And it's still something that I do, but I just wanted something that was more day to day, instead of, you know, looking 3-4 months down the line for an event, and then, you know, still having to figure out, like, okay, well, what else are you going to do, you know, on your day to day basis.
So with everything going on with coronavirus, right?
Yeah.
It's impacting a lot of people differently. But for a lot of people, it's kind of given them a chance to either explore avenues they wouldn't normally have a chance to do, or kind of just wait for it to blow over. But you've kind of taken an initiative upon yourself, man, and to really bolster, you know, your arsenal and tap into the esports industry and talk about, you know, a little bit about live streaming, Twitch. Myself am a Fortnite player a little bit with my buddies, but at the end of the day, man, I think that's just a really big industry. I think it's up and coming.
Definitely. I think that, and of course it's affected, you know, everybody different. I think for myself, it's probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Really?
You know, personally, it initially I was very disappointed and kind of bummed out, because we did have a lot of things that were kind of in place with brand partnerships, with events, and we were rolling, to be honest with you, and kind of, you know, going through this year. The Big 3 season was getting ready to start, and that, you know, that's something that's in a different city every week, so you can do a different event every single week at the cities that the Big 3 are in. And then Nate, along with that, Nate was going to film House Guest for 30 episodes. You know, we just had different things, and once that kind of happened, then you started to see some of the sponsorships get pulled, some of the like the companies that did want to do different Instagram activations wanted to wait. Just because it might be, you know, something that people can't buy right now, you know. So it was really just at a point where I was at a standstill for a while. I just started playing Fortnite all the time. I know all the players that I play with started playing Fortnite all the time, and you know, Call of Duty or 2K. And then it just got to a point of, okay, well, you know, we can take the situation that we're in now and you know, really flip it, get into, you know, esports, and starting to do some of those digital brand partnerships, where we're working now with a lot of companies like online banking companies, you know, or companies that just aren't necessarily as affected by the coronavirus as, you know, somebody that maybe like a physical retailer might be, or, you know, doing an actual event. So we've been focusing a lot on digital, esports, of course, but, you know, just digital in general. And then the other thing that coronavirus has allowed me to do is, because I haven't been moving around as much, I'm kind of able to, you know, look at things that might have been down the road for me, like soccer, and now we're getting in, more into that, where we're adding soccer guys to our roster. We just started a brand partnership with a big soccer club over in London for Nate, so
Cool.
things like that
Cool.
are things that we would not have had the opportunity to do or even known that we wanted to do it, if it wasn't for the coronavirus.
So have you gone, because I just want to take this a step further because I find it pretty interesting. Have you set something up where you've taken a client like Tyrell Williams and had him play, or took a Boozer and Nate, had them play each other in 2K, took Tyrell and Eli, had them play each other in Madden, do something like that?
So we haven't yet.
Okay.
We just signed a soccer player, Christian Roldan. He plays for the Seattle Sounders.
Okay.
So he's in the bubble right now. What we're gonna do when he gets out the bubble, because he lives in Seattle, Nate lives in Seattle, is we're gonna have Nate play him in FIFA. And
Okay.
have him play Nate in 2K.
Okay.
And then after that, we're gonna kind of like duel it out in person, where Nate has to do a crossbar challenge and he has to play Nate either one-on-one in basketball or in horse. So I think, it's kind of cool, like content-wise, to be able to see them play each other in their own sports, but then actually have the physical about it too. I think it's something that fans will enjoy. So
I'll tell you, man, that'd be pretty cool. I wouldn't want to
Sure.
play Nate though one-on-one right now. I still think he's got it right there. But
yeah, he's in shape. He's been training to fight. So he's definitely still got a good shape. He's been doing two a days for his workouts, and I think he's starting to move to 3 every other day.
2 hours in the weight room for me is enough. It's plenty.
Yeah,
But no, man. So you just launched a clothing brand this past
Yeah.
February, right? With Boozer and Nate, and
Yep.
I kind of read a little bit about it, but for the viewers, tell them kind of how that came to be. I think it's a pretty cool backstory with Joakim Noah and that sort of thing.
For
If you
sure.
wouldn't mind sharing about that.
Yeah, so the brand came about because when Noah won the back-to-back championships at Florida, one of the reporters asked them, how he felt about winning the championship, and he kind of said, to everybody, that said we wouldn't win or said we couldn't do it, hold that. So it really just became something where the Bulls, like that year, when people were saying that they couldn't do this, couldn't do that, they ended the Heat's 27 game streak, and
I was at that game, man. But yeah, keep going.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, to beat the the Brooklyn Nets in the series, they didn't have Derrick Rose, and so it was just a lot of like an underdog kind of story.
Sure.
So that just became their thing in the locker room. Was it was just always hold that. So it was, and it could be, I guess, taken in any facet of life. If it's a test that somebody says you can't pass, or if it's a job that's somebody says you can't get, it's almost like an affirmation to yourself. For Nate and Booze, it was something that they had been working on for a while. They wanted to. We really saw a good opportunity in February for the Super Bowl to launch it in Miami, because Boozer lives in Miami currently. Nate's always in Miami. We have a lot of different brand partnerships and stuff like that there. And Nate was actually getting flown down to the Super Bowl for a fan activation. So we just thought it was perfect time to kind of launch that. And then you had All-Star Weekend. That was 2 weeks after, and that was in Chicago this year.
Yeah.
So it literally, like, everything almost kind of lined up with, Boozer having that Miami connection, and then you go up to Chicago. We did an event in Chicago, and then it kind of, just built up the traction from there, where, now we do what we were going to do before the coronavirus was have different events and different pop-up shops in the cities that they played in. So we were going to do Cleveland, New York City, Boston, LA, Utah, Denver, Seattle, because Nate's from there, North Carolina because of Duke, so
Sure.
That was kind of the direction that we were going in. So now we've kind of had to like shift it a little bit, be a little bit unconventional, but we're still working on a lot of different partnerships, a lot of great collaborations that will start to launch like towards the beginning of 2021. Can't talk about all of them, but
Sure.
It's definitely very, very exciting.
So there was something about building the brand initially, right before, I think it was you guys were going through, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you guys were going through maybe the logistics of it, figuring out, Nate was figuring out what it represented. But it wasn't until he sat down with Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V, as most people know him, that kind of changed his perspective or changed his outlook? What was the biggest thing? I know you had a chance. I think I saw a picture. You were at that meeting.
Yeah.
What was it that kind of really shifted his mindset about the brand?
I think for Nate, it wasn't necessarily the brand, the clothing brand. I think it was more for Nate himself.
Okay.
As a brand. And so Gary Vee is actually the reason that I kind of got to the point that I'm at, where that sneaker store that we go back to that I was working in, he came in that sneaker store, and kind of just had like a discussion with me about like where I wanted to go in life, and really like what I saw myself doing and why I wasn't doing that. And he wasn't really that big on social media at that time. I think he had like less than 100,000 followers, but
Really?
he was still the same exact Gary Vee. And that really changed me a lot. And then he got to the point where he started making YouTube videos, and I would watch his YouTube videos every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just very inspirational. So myself I met somebody that got me reconnected with Gary, and I was kind of able to like tell him the story. He actually remembered exactly who I was, which was kind of cool. So we started doing a couple of things together, and I knew that he's a big Knicks fan. So I wanted to have him meet Nate, and Nate and I we were in LA. I think we were there for maybe it was the Oscars.
Okay.
But everybody was out in LA. And so Nate kind of got to have that conversation with Gary, and what he told him, which I think stood out to Nate, is that he said, John Madden is one of the best NFL coaches of all time, but he's just Madden. But when you look at Madden, the football game, it's one of the highest selling video games ever.
Right.
And then he said Dwayne Johnson, as the wrestler, The Rock, is a good wrestler, is one of the best. But Dwayne Johnson, the actor, he's a huge brand. He's the highest paid actor in the world. And he said the same thing about Mark Wahlberg. He said Marky Mark is a rapper, but Mark Wahlberg is Mark Wahlberg. And I think for Nate, when he was breaking it down like that, he said, you are an amazing basketball player, but what is Nate Robinson, the brand? Why can't you take these different things and build it up? And I think for Nate, to hear that from Gary, who's somebody that he looks up to a lot, and be told it from somebody that's not with him every day. I can tell him all the time, or his family can tell him, but
sure.
When somebody else that's not around him all the time can see that and can kind of put that in his head, I think that that went really, really far with him. Just as being able to say, what, okay, cool, let me buckle down. This is what I want to do. This is kind of how I'm going to build it up. And he's been doing a lot more lately, just to since that meeting, just to build his brand up.
Listen, Gary Vee, I think he's done a lot for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the best things about him is he doesn't sugarcoat what he's trying to tell you, and he'll do whatever he needs to say for you to get what he's trying to say. I think that makes him really special in that regard. But yeah, you brought up The Rock, and I just think when you talk about somebody who wanted to be something more, I mean, his story is pretty interesting too, with him being a football player, having that's why it's $7? Is it $7 in his pocket he had?
Like $7,
and then so like everything is like 7 promotions, 7 so he kind of built off that, which was actually pretty cool. But
and I love that, man. It's people look at people and they see the position that they're in right now, and they're like, oh, that guy has everything, but they don't remember or know really where they came from, to get to that point. So I like that The Rock still kind of keeps that, where it's around. Sometimes it's subliminal, but it is, still something that can kind of remind you, like, yeah, this guy had $7 in his pocket at one point in time, and he's the the highest paid actor of all time.
Right, blockbuster, right?
Yeah, it makes you feel like you can achieve that.
Absolutely. Since you started the company, or even your career, leaving the sneaker store, entering the sports marketing industry, what would you say has been the biggest driver of your success?
I think that there's other people that depend on how hard I work. I can't really. There's so many other marketing companies that the athletes can sign with. So I think that to try to keep up with the Joneses almost, where I want to be able to offer my athletes the same thing everybody else can and more. But also because, when you're doing marketing, it's not necessarily as big of a deal for basketball players, but for football players, these guys are only making money 3 months out the year, September through December, and then they might get a bonus check in March.
Right.
And that's really it. So, when it comes to, hey, I want to do this marketing or this event, that, that could be the money that's getting these guys, through until the next season starts, especially because the average football career is only 3 years. So I have to be able to, in those 3 years or 5 years or 6 years, be able to build your brand up where it can be sustainable for you to, be able to leave your kids something,
Right.
So I think that's really like a driving force for me, and in the NBA too, being able to take these guys' brands where it's 5 years and you haven't played an NBA game and people still care about you. They still want to see you. They still want to know what you're doing and, still pay close attention to you. So I think it's really just the fact that there's other people that depend directly on how hard I work.
When you talk about that, a lot of people don't understand that. And I think for the viewers, NFL players, they make 3 months, right, worth of checks. So if they're spending that $10,000 a week, right, from the check, eventually when, January 1st comes or something, they don't make the playoffs, they're spending that $10,000 a week.
Exactly.
Obviously that's not sustainable. So,
yeah,
it's all about who's helping them out.
Agent fees, you
Right.
have, you got to ship your cars back home. You got to pay for your training. You might have bought your mom a car or a house,
Yeah.
So all those things are things that people, and I think people see athletes and they see the amount of money that they get, and then they're like, okay, cool, like, I don't know how this person, could lose it all. But it's really not that hard, when you're giving an 18, 19-year-old kid, more money than they could ever dream of.
Right.
And they're gonna make it for 3 years, and then they have to make that stretch for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Most of it's gone before they even, are fiscally responsible to be able to fathom the amount of money that they have.
So I'm curious, just while we're on the topic of that,
Yeah.
the G League that they kind of created, it's not really the G League, but they're starting it up. It's for players who are going to stay in the United States to keep them. They didn't want to go to the NCAA, so they maybe would play overseas, but instead they're going to keep them in the States. That league is supposed to, from what I've heard and Adam Silver talk about, is supposed to really mentor the players, give them what they wouldn't get in college,
Exactly.
pay them, but teach them skills. And I think that's missing when you get a guy like Ben Simmons who comes in, stays for a semester, and then leaves.
Yeah, 1,000%.
But
And at that point, those players, if you're one and done, you're not even really paying attention to what you're learning in
Right.
school. It's just, all right, cool. I know I'm only here for this semester. And I'm gone. So you're really just like skidding by. You're not necessarily learning stuff. It's more for like the college experience.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you have to get like backdoor money or stuff like that anyway. So why not put them in a position where they can still play against the same competition level, if not higher? Allow them to just learn what the league's going to be like and not just throw them right into it.
So with coronavirus and everything that has happened, that's obviously going to affect college, with the draft and new players kind of coming in. What have you talked about, with Tyrell Williams, Eli Apple, some of the active players that you represent?
Yep.
What have you talked about with them as far as what the season may hold, or what to do if something were to happen?
We don't know.
Right.
We're kind of at a position right now where we're 20 days out from when they're supposed to report to camp. I don't know. I can't answer that one. It's kind of tough. We're in the dark on that, as far as what camp's going to be like, what preseason's going to be like, what the first game of the season's going to be like, and if it'll just stop mid-season. I know the MLS just sent a team home. It's kind of hard to say.
Is there some concern as far as letting these athletes play that you represent, with them maybe contracting being one of the 8 players or being one of the players that contract the virus? Is there some concern?
I think there's concern there in getting the virus. I also think that there's concern in, when you're taking a guy who would have been at camp a month ago already, and then they have all that time to, learn the playbook, to get the chemistry down with the team, to, just learn your new teammates. Learn the people that you're going to be around, especially if you're a rookie coming in.
Right.
I think that there's so much time that you have in the preseason, then you have the preseason, and injuries still happen. So to kind of throw these guys in at, the end of July, when they usually would be there around like Father's Day, now you're there around the end of July, and you have 2 preseason games. Now anybody that's on the bubble has no chance to even make the team. And if you make it where, okay, cool, we're going to have these 2 guys that are, or these 2 games can be for people that we want to, see if they can make the team, then you have those players that are on the roster for sure. They don't have any chemistry. So then really that first game turns into almost like preseason. But now you're trying to get chemistry down, and it's sloppy football.
Right.
And games that count.
Right.
I think that's probably the hardest part is, just not really knowing. And a lot of the guys have just been really just responsible for themselves on working out individually. Like, hey, I know Tyrell's like, hey, Derek, let's go here at this time. We'll meet up with like Henry Ruggs, and they're just doing a lot of things like on their own, which is cool. You get that timing down, you get that chemistry down, but at the same time, it shouldn't be the player's responsibility to do that on their own either.
Right.
I think that the team should have just a little bit more responsibility if that's what they want to do, or just cancel the season.
Sure. Have you talked at all, without going too far in? Have you talked about, have you discussed the idea of, hey, if they cancel the season, here are the workouts we're gonna have to do to get ready for next season, or is there a period of time where they just wouldn't work out?
Yeah. No, I haven't talked to them about that. I would imagine that there's probably just going to be like a period of time where they're not going to work out if you're not going to play for a year.
Okay.
Those guys are so in tune with their bodies, and it's just regular to them. So I don't think that it's a point where you're just sitting at home eating all day and you look like White Goodman at the end of dodgeball. And that's like,
sure, absolutely, sure.
Now I got to get back into football shape. Those guys are so good with kind of like staying around. That of course there's going to be some kind of like rest or ease, but then too makes it more of, okay, cool, where's this money coming from for until the next season now, when you've already been not getting paid until since last December, and you're expecting paychecks to start coming in now. You're dealing with the same problems as as a normal citizen would have.
Right. No, I'm sorry, you still got me hung up about that White Goodman reference. That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good.
Appreciate it.
So let me ask you this, because I want to leave you with this.
Yeah.
When your career is over, when you decide I want to do something different or enter a different industry or just move on, what is the kind of impact that you want to leave behind? How do you want to be remembered for the time that you've been in the industry?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess I don't know. I've never thought about it. I'm kind of just like,
I'm putting you on the spot, Polo. I'm putting you on the spot, man.
You are. I'm kind of like, I like to be able to enjoy the moment that I'm in and kind of like soak it in, so that I don't get past it and then look back on it. I'm like, man, I should have appreciated it. Where like I try to like always live here and focus on here. I guess if I was going forward and wanted to look back on it, I think as long as the guys that that are my clients are good, and they have good things to say about me, and they're happy with the way that they're represented. I know Nate wants me to work with his kids. So to me that's like, okay, cool. Then I feel like I'm doing good enough work for you that you'll recommend me to your son. Yeah. And he brings in guys to us all the time. He's grown our roster tremendously. So I think just to kind of have that validation where, the guys that you're working with love what you're doing, have nothing bad to say about, the work that you're doing for them, and encourage their friends to, kind of come over to us. I think that, that's definitely I'm good with that.
No, man, that's really special. And I saw the other day, Nate Robinson, he posted something on Instagram. I think his son was doing these workouts. Man, I'm telling you, I am working hard in the gym. But if I was doing some of those workouts at 15, 16, 17 years old, there's no telling, where you could be.
It's insane, bro. Just to kind of see, you know, the way that they're pushed. And when I say Nate is up doing 2-a-days, his kids are too, you know, 7 in the morning every day.
Wow.
You know, and they'll work out again at 12. And then still have, you know, their runs that they'll do with their friends and playing basketball and stuff like that. So they definitely work hard. So I just can't wait to see how they turn out, you know, 2, 3, 4 years from now.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I saw he finished it with, and I love this. This is a great philosophy to have. And he said, look, he exemplified that for the duration of his career. Nate did. But he said, hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard.
Yeah.
Right? So that's true. So
yeah, he says that every day.
But no, man. Polo, thank you so much for joining us on the show, man. I really do wish you the best.
Thank you.
And I think you're going to continue to do big things. And thank you again, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. Take care.